Trump's first bill back in office.
Nobody trying to get in, and that's what we've been waiting for a long time.
Aiding his immigration crackdown. A tough Senate hearing.
We have massive health problems in this country that we must face honestly.
As Trump's controversial pick for health secretary is pressed over key programs. And Republicans leave Doral.
We're building consensus. We're putting together a blueprint to do that very complicated thing, and we plan to act on that in very short order.
They hope to return to D.C. with a plan to pass Trump's agenda. These stories and more coming up on Newsbreak.
Hello, South Florida. I'm Julian Lascano.
And I'm Alejandro Marquina. Today is Thursday, January 30th, 2025.
Live from the Lee Caplin School of Journalism and Media in North Miami, this is Caplin News.
From rescue missions to recovery mission, as officials announced that everyone on crashed airliner and a helicopter in D.C. have died. Tragedy struck near the nation's capital when an American Airlines flight collided against a military aircraft over the Potomac River.
Our D.C. Bureau reporter David Lascano has more. He's live from the scene. David, can you walk us through it?
Good morning, Alejandro and Julian. I'm standing right next to the Potomac River. Right, only 100 miles from here was when the collision took place. Now, if you look over my right shoulder, you can see the Ronald Reagan National Airport where the flight was supposed to land yesterday night. And if we take a look at the other side, you can see the lights from the rescue team that were trying to help as many survivors as they can.
Now, David, are there any updates about recovery efforts?
Well, as of now, they have found 28 bodies and 28 deaths have been confirmed, but the rescue team is working hard. Now that it's the daylight, it's much better because there's warmer temperatures and you can actually see what's on the river. But you got to imagine what would be like yesterday night, where the water was murky, it was cold, and the icy wind gave no talking to these rescue workers that were trying to pull as many people as they could out of the water.
I saw the plane banking at an angle that a plane shouldn't bank, and I saw sparks flying.
Crash. This is alert 3. Crash. This is alert 3.
Air traffic control recordings released Thursday morning following a crash late Wednesday night when a passenger plane carrying 64 people collided with a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter midair over Washington, D.C.
We are actively working with local, state, and federal authorities on emergency response efforts, and the American Airlines care team has been activated to assist our passengers and their families.
American Airlines says PSA-operated Flight 5342 from Wichita, Kansas, was trying to land at Reagan National Airport at the time of impact.
The challenges are access. The water that we're operating in is about 8 feet deep. There is wind. There is pieces of ice out there, so it's just dangerous and hard to work in.
It had 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board when it went down in the Potomac River.
At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident. And we have recovered 27 people from the plane and 1 from the helicopter.
I'm just praying that somebody's pulling her out of the river right now. She texted me that they were landing in 20 minutes. The rest of my text did not get delivered.
According to officials, the helicopter was on a training flight from Virginia. Now, just hours after the accident, the CEO of American Airlines released a statement directed to the families and relatives of the victim, and he said that he's going to come to Washington, D.C. with his GO team shortly. Donald Trump also tweeted on the X platform that he considers this accident he blames this accident on negligency, quoting that this is not good and it could have been prevented. For Caplin News reporting live from Washington, D.C., I'm David Lascano.
Turning now to the White House, President Trump signed the Laken-Riley Act, a bipartisan immigration bill that has been voted into law yesterday. This bill will require undocumented migrants to be detained by the Department of Homeland Security for certain crimes. Some of these crimes include theft, burglary, death, and serious injury. Before signing the bill, the president had some words for the media.
We've broken from decades of failed Washington policies and restored common sense and sanity to our government.
The bipartisan immigration bill was named after a 22-year-old student from Georgia who was killed by a undocumented migrant last year. Laken-Riley's mom was also in attendance during the signing of the bill and spoke on her behalf of her daughter.
The Cuban government condemns Trump's plan to house tens of thousands in Guantanamo Bay. Trump said he will sign an executive action ordering the federal government to prepare for U.S. naval base for criminal migrants. The U.S. hosts migrant processing centers separate from high security jail for foreign terror suspects. Cuban officials say the base is an illegal operation of their territory.
And now the Venezuelan community is on edge after Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem rolled back the Biden administration TPS extension. This decision contributes to President Donald Trump's crackdown on immigration. Caplin News reporter Samantha Gutierrez has the story.
The Trump administration revoked the 18-month extension of temporary protective status for nearly 600,000 Venezuelans living in the U.S., almost half of which reside here in Florida. I spoke to an immigration lawyer about what's next for those left in limbo.
It's not final, although from the looks of everything that's happening, the likelihood that it's going to be extended is not great.
Idalis Perez has worked with immigration in the community for over 30 years, recently staying busy studying the administration's new orders that crack down on immigration.
Secretary Mayorkas put in place an 18-month extension of the temporary protective status. I rolled that back. We're going to make sure that's used properly, and that's the president's heart and desire as well.
Congress created TPS for nations dealing with armed conflicts or environmental disasters. Today, nationals from 17 countries have TPS, but this revoked extension only affects Venezuelans. The U.S. opened TPS for Venezuelans in 2021 and then again in 2023, creating two separate filing processes for people from the same country.
I think that's where the issue that the Trump administration is raising about some issues with redesignating. And I think that's where the administration is looking at.
She urges the community not to worry, but to stay ahead of their status.
Well, first of all, you have to see an attorney to see whether there are options.
Individuals with asylum cases, even if administratively closed, can still request a work permit without reopening their case.
So it's not over for a work authorization and a license and lawful status in the U.S.
She recommends keeping evidence of residence in the U.S. for over 2 years to avoid an expedited removal. It can be birth certificates, marriage certificates, or bank statements.
They're not going to get picked up and deported. If they haven't filed an asylum because they had status, then perhaps that's an exception to the rule of filing within the year. We need to find alternatives to stay in lawful status. It's sad, but it's not the end.
A new Homeland Security must decide by February 1st whether to extend TPS for cases ending in April and decide by July 31st for those TPS that expire in September. Reporting for Caplin News, I'm Samantha Gutierrez.
RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing continues this morning following tough questions on key health issues from senators. Caplin News reporter Jose Ruano has the breakdown.
Mr. Kennedy, do you have the support?
Testifying during a Senate Finance Committee hearing, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. faces hours of questioning, with many Democrats focused on his stance of vaccines.
He has made it his life's work to sow doubt and discourage parents from getting their kids life-saving vaccines.
But in his opening statements, RFK Jr. downplays anti-vaccine rhetoric.
Vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. All of my kids are vaccinated.
These statements differ from some of the ones he's made in the past.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
Those claims are unsubstantiated by the scientific community. During the hearing, RFK Jr. acknowledged his advocacy for vaccine safety and says there are no testing properly. He says he asked, quote, uncomfortable questions.
I'm not going to apologize for that. We have massive health problems in this country that we must face honestly.
In fact, Kennedy says healthcare costs are high to the chronic diseases, a view with support among some of Democratic senators.
CDC says 90% of healthcare spending goes toward managing chronic disease, which hits lower-income Americans the hardest.
On abortion, Kennedy researched Republican senators that states should have control.
I agree with President Trump that every abortion is a tragedy. I agree with them that we cannot be a moral nation if we have 1.2 million abortions a year.
I'm Jose Ruano reporting for Caplin News.
House Republicans are still working to reach a consensus for President Trump's legislative agenda this morning. After yesterday's GOP retreat in Doral, House Speaker Mike Johnson is pledging on campaign promises for President Trump in one legislative order. It would include emergency policy, immigration policy, and tax cuts. Using the reconciliation process, Republicans are hoping to pass the federal spending using majority votes in both chambers of Congress.
We're building consensus. We're putting together a blueprint to do that very complicated thing, and we plan to act on that in very short order. And as we've said, when we return to the Hill, the Budget Committee will be marking up a budget that serves as the foundation for the reconciliation process.
Republicans will return to Capitol Hill next week to work on the blueprint. Democrats will hold their policy retreat in March. The Heat take on the Cavs at home after defeating the Magic.
And that's still ahead, and so is this story.
I've been cycling 15 years. I feel safe cycling around here.
A bike lane gets a makeover after months of construction. Newsbreak will be back in 2 minutes.
Type 2 diabetes can have a big impact on your life. But how can it be prevented? Well, the first step is knowing if you have something called prediabetes. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Road improvements leading to safer cycling on Key Biscayne. A popular stretch of the Rickenbacker Causeway is open again after years of closure following Hurricane Irma.
The newly upgraded pedestrian bike path aims to improve safety for cyclists and runners. Caplin News' Benjamin Cure takes us there.
For years after Hurricane Irma, this stretch of the Rickenbacker Causeway was closed. But now, South Floridians have a safer and more scenic way to head to Hopi Beach on this new pedestrian and bike path. With $14 million in upgrades, this path will prioritize safety and accessibility. Longtime cyclists like Frank Fasalo say the improvements make all the difference.
I've been cycling 15 years. I feel safe cycling around here because the line and the bypass.
In 2024, Miami-Dade County saw 18 cyclist fatalities. So far this year, that number is 0. Safer routes like this new path could be making a difference.
I do feel safer because it's away from the cars and away from all the traffic and the noise, so it's better.
It's very nice. I like how we have our own specific bike path, almost looks like a little mini road.
Yeah, I feel safe. It's really smooth while you're cycling. I really enjoy it.
I definitely feel like it'll make people feel safer just because, you know, if they want to bike with their kids, it's a lot like more of a controlled environment.
I think more cycling ways like this that looks nice and feels safe will probably encourage more people to cycle more.
This new pathway isn't just about getting from one point to another. It's about making sure that pedestrians and cyclists can safely enjoy South Florida's natural beauty. From Key Biscayne, for Caplin News, I'm Benjamin Cure.
And after beating the Magic at home, the Heat looked to close out their home game stretch against the Cavaliers. The Caps took the early lead with Jarrett Allen hitting a layup, followed by Donovan Mitchell stepping into the paint for a short jumper. The Heat answered with Bam slamming in dunk after dunk, but it wasn't enough to put them ahead. The final score was Cavaliers 126, Heat 106. Miami will continue this Saturday in San Antonio against the Spurs at 8:30 p.m.
And while the Heat may not have been in their best game, the Florida Panthers are celebrating shutting out the Los Angeles Kings at home. The Cats were dominant throughout the game, but the real star was their goalie Sergei Bobrovsky with 30 stopped shots and his second shutout of the season, allowing his team to dominate on offense. The final score was Los Angeles 0, Panthers 3. The Cats will stay at home to host the Chicago Blackhawks on Saturday at 1 p.m. You're watching Newsbreak, and we're coming right back.
lot of ways to reach out to a friend about their mental health. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
Bill is a family man. He invests his money wisely and provides a good life for his children. Just one problem. He often opens emails from senders he doesn't know, and his computer is not password protected. One day, Bill checked his bank account and 94% of malware attacks originate from emails. Don't be like Bill. Take your cybersecurity seriously.
And that's all the time we have for Newsbreak. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Julian Lescano.
And I'm Alejandro Marquina. Get more news at any time at caplinnews.fiu.edu.